us start our discussion from where we had left yesterday. Yesterday we had discussed briefly about what actually depression is, what are the different types of depression, what is the pathogenesis of depression, and how we can treat depression. What are the various types of antidepressant drugs, and we discussed the mechanism of action and pharmacological actions of tricyclic antidepressants. Rest of the things of tricyclic antidepressants we will discuss in today's class. But in this class we will start our discussion with selective serotonin reuptake inhibitors, SSRIs, and we will try to see what are the advantages that we get with SSRIs compared with tricyclic antidepressants. But once we have seen that what are the advantages of SSRIs, we will also see what are the shortcomings or what are the limitations of SSRIs. And then we will conclude the strength and weaknesses of SSRIs. Once we have discussed about SSRIs, we will discuss about SNRIs, serotonin norepinephrine reuptake inhibitors, and then we will discuss the remaining parts of tricyclic antidepressants. We will also discuss about MAO inhibitors, and in the last segment of this class we will discuss about atypical antidepressants. What are the examples of atypical antidepressants, why they are called as atypical antidepressants, and how they are different from the first generation or second generation antidepressants or typical antidepressants. So let us start our discussion with selective serotonin reuptake inhibitors, SSRIs. As I had told you yesterday in the class that SSRIs were launched in 1980s, and the purpose was to launch a better drug compared to the first generation antidepressants. So the first SSRI that was launched was fluoxetine in 1987. Subsequently, various other SSRIs were discovered: paroxetine, sertraline, fluvoxamine, citalopram, escitalopram. While we discuss about SSRIs, we will also discuss among these SSRIs what are the good things and what are the bad things among the individual SSRIs. Now tell me, what is the mechanism of action of SSRI? We have already discussed this yesterday. Yeah, the name itself, selective serotonin reuptake inhibitor. So if you inhibit the reuptake, its metabolism will not happen and there will be increased level of serotonin. Now these SSRI, they have got a relatively higher affinity for serotonin reuptake transporter, SCRT, compared to the norepinephrine transporter, that is NET. So that's why they are selective for inhibiting the reuptake of serotonin. But they have got negligible affinity for other receptors. For example, muscarinic receptors or histaminergic receptors. And this is one of the reasons why it is or why it has got lesser adverse events compared to the tricyclic antidepressants. So, just by seeing the mechanism of action of SSRIs and tricyclic antidepressants, you can broadly tell the advantages of SSRIs over TCA. And the advantages arise from the fact that SSRIs do not inhibit the other receptors such as muscarinic receptor, histamine receptor or alpha adrenergic receptors. They selectively block the reuptake of serotonin because they have got higher affinity for SCRT. They have got less affinity for NET. So because they do not block the other receptors, the adverse effects such as orthostatic hypotension, sedation, dry mouth, blurred vision, these are not seen with SSRIs. Also, cardiovascular adverse effects seen with TCA is not seen in the case of SSRIs. In contrast to MAO inhibitors, we will discuss about MAO inhibitors. SSRI do not cause the Cheese reaction. Now, yesterday we were discussing that the effect of tricyclic antidepressants takes some time to appear. Similar is the case with SSRIs. They also take 2 to 3 weeks for their antidepressant effect to appear, and the reason is almost same. The increased level of serotonin initially, what it does, it stimulates the 5-HT1D autoreceptors. And this stimulation of 5-HT1D autoreceptor, this actually reduces the serotonergic transmission or serotonergic firing. But with repeated administration of SSRIs, there will be desensitization and downregulation of these autoreceptors. So once there is desensitization and downregulation of these autoreceptors, you will get the actual effect of enhanced serotonergic transmission. Understood? Now, let us understand the pharmacokinetics of SSRIs and why it is important for you to understand the pharmacokinetics. First thing, we can differentiate between different SSRIs or individual SSRI based on their pharmacokinetic properties. For example, based on the half-life, we can categorize SSRIs among short-acting SSRIs, intermediate-acting SSRIs or SSRIs with intermediate half-life, and long-acting SSRIs. Among long-acting SSRIs, we have fluoxetine. And among short-acting SSRIs, we have drugs such as paroxetine and fluvoxamine. Now, what is the difference? If a patient has a tendency to miss the doses, the discontinuation syndrome or withdrawal syndrome will be more with SSRIs with shorter half-life. For example, the discontinuation syndrome will be more severe with SSRIs with shorter T-half and with no active metabolite such as paroxetine or fluvoxamine. Whereas the discontinuation syndrome or withdrawal syndrome will be less severe with long half-life SSRIs such as fluoxetine. So this is the one basic difference among the different SSRIs, but this is not all the facts that differentiate these individual SSRIs. There are other factors also. The other factor is that SSRIs are enzyme inhibitors. They are CYP450 enzyme inhibitors. Some of the SSRIs such as sertraline, citalopram, these are weak inhibitor. Whereas SSRIs such as fluoxetine, fluvoxamine, paroxetine, these are the strong inhibitor of CYP450 enzyme. Now see, one thing that we have noticed is that fluoxetine has got long acting or long T-half. So one advantage with fluoxetine is that the discontinuation syndrome will be milder or negligible. But one disadvantage with fluoxetine is that it is a strong CYP450 enzyme inhibitor. So the chances of pharmacokinetic drug interaction will be more with fluoxetine. So SSRIs inhibit the metabolism of drugs metabolized by CYP2D6. With paroxetine and fluvoxamine, both the disadvantages will be there. These are short acting, so discontinuation syndrome will be more severe and the chances of enzyme inhibition will be more. But with fluoxetine, only one disadvantage of CYP450 enzyme inhibition will be there. As citalopram and to an extent citalopram, they are relatively free of the pharmacokinetic drug interaction. Though citalopram is a weak inhibitor, but the chances of enzyme inhibition is relatively less. And escitalopram is also almost free of pharmacokinetic drug interaction. So that's why escitalopram like drug is more preferred among the SSRIs. Now we had discussed about pharmacokinetic drug interaction. The other drug interaction that can happen is pharmacodynamic drug interaction. Now what do you mean by pharmacodynamic drug interaction? See, SSRIs increases the level of serotonin. Any other drug which also increases the level of serotonin by any mechanism, for example MAO inhibitors or SNRIs or drugs such as sumatriptan, which is a 5-HT agonistic drug. So any other drug which also increases the level of serotonin, if given along with SSRI, they can lead to very higher increase in serotonin level, which can manifest as serotonin syndrome. So the serotonin syndrome is actually due to the overstimulation of 5-HT receptors in the central gray nuclei and in the medulla. So just be aware about this particular adverse event or this particular pharmacodynamic drug interaction while prescribing SSRIs. So this serotonin syndrome can manifest as hyperthermia, muscle rigidity, tremor, rapid change in mental status and vital sign. It might also lead to cardiovascular collapse, which might be fatal. And if you are prescribing SSRI with any other drug which also increases the level of serotonin, there should be a certain washout period between the prescription of these two drugs or these two classes of drugs, and that washout period should be of minimum 6 weeks. Understood? Now SSRIs, they increases the level of serotonin, or they increases the serotonergic tone not only just in the brain but also in other parts of the body. If there is increased serotonin activity in the gut, it will lead to nausea, gastrointestinal upset, diarrhea and other GI manifestations. So these gastrointestinal side effects, which can manifest as nausea, vomiting, diarrhea, can happen particularly at the start of the therapy, but it usually improves after the first week, and this gastrointestinal side effect is mostly seen with paroxetine and fluvoxamine. The other disadvantage with SSRI is that though SSRI is a preferred drug for treating depression in children and adolescents, but it has been seen that it increases the tendency of suicide among children and adolescents. So this is the disadvantage that you need to encounter, or that you can face while prescribing SSRIs to children and adolescents. Because suicide itself is one of the risk factor associated with depression, and any drug which you are prescribing for treating depression, if it itself is increasing the risk of suicide, then it can be dangerous. So what are the demerits that you have noticed about SSRIs till now? Yes, both pharmacokinetic drug interaction and pharmacodynamic drug interaction. If we talk about pharmacodynamic drug interaction, serotonin syndrome is one of the basic thing that you need to avoid. Particularly, you need to avoid prescribing any other drug which can also enhance the level of serotonin. Apart from that, these are CYP450 enzyme inhibitor, particularly CYP450-2D and CYP450-3A4, and the enzyme inhibition is more with drugs such as paroxetine, fluvoxamine, and also with fluoxetine. Then the chances of discontinuation syndrome, particularly with the shorter T-half SSRIs and SSRIs with no active metabolite, such as paroxetine, fluvoxamine. But SSRIs with longer T-half, the chances of discontinuation syndrome is very less or negligible. The other problem, apart from the GI manifestation, is the sexual dysfunction. Apart from that, increased chances of suicide, particularly in children and adolescents. It has been seen with the prescription of SSRIs, 1 out of 50 children become more suicidal. So we have discussed both advantages and disadvantages of SSRIs. Now, what are the therapeutic uses of SSRIs? These are same as that of tricyclic antidepressants, but these can be prescribed also in panic disorder, social phobia, eating disorder. Like TCA, they can also be prescribed in obsessive compulsive disorders. They can also be prescribed in post-traumatic stress disorder. Now let us discuss about SNRIs. And what do you mean by SNRIs? Serotonin, norepinephrine, reuptake, inhibitor, and the examples are venlafaxine, desvenlafaxine, duloxetine. Now you can notice one thing, that it is inhibiting reuptake of both serotonin as well as norepinephrine, as the name itself is very much clear. The same thing is being done by tricyclic antidepressants. So how it is different? Tricyclic antidepressants, they block other receptors also. For example, alpha adrenergic receptor, histamine receptors, muscarinic receptors, and blocking of those additional receptors are responsible for the adverse effects that is seen with the tricyclic antidepressants. But SNRI, in contrast to tricyclic antidepressants, they only inhibit the reuptake of serotonin and norepinephrine, which is basically required for the antidepressant action. Okay, so it is retaining the good properties of tricyclic antidepressants, but it is not retaining the bad properties of tricyclic antidepressants. Now let us discuss the remaining points of tricyclic antidepressants that we had not discussed yesterday. If you see the examples of tricyclic antidepressants, you can broadly classify tricyclic antidepressants into categories of drug which block both serotonin as well as norepinephrine or noradrenaline reuptake. These are tertiary amine. Then second category of drug which predominantly block the reuptake of noradrenaline. So drugs which block the reuptake of noradrenaline and 5-HT are imipramine, amitriptyline, and clomipramine. Whereas drug which predominantly block the noradrenaline reuptake are desipramine, nortriptyline, and amoxapine. Both these drugs or both these classes of or subclasses of antidepressants or subclasses of tricyclic antidepressants, they block alpha adrenergic receptors, histamine receptors, or muscarinic receptors. But the thing is, the muscarinic receptor blocking is more with the tertiary amine tricyclic antidepressants such as amitriptyline or imipramine. Now if you see this table, what you are noticing, any peculiar thing that you are noticing among these drugs and their manifestations, their side effects? Yeah. See, with desipramine, nortriptyline, amoxapine, the chances of sedation is relatively less. Also, to an extent, the chances of hypotension is less with desipramine. And because I have told you drugs such as desipramine, nortriptyline, amoxapine, they have got lesser antimuscarinic effect. So the antimuscarinic effects are also less, particularly with desipramine or amoxapine. As far as sedation is concerned, with amitriptyline, imipramine, desipramine, it is very high. Among these three, desipramine has got less tendency to cause sedation. As far as pharmacokinetics is concerned, These are highly bound to proteins. Their protein binding is more than 95%, and they have got high volume of distribution. And because they have got high volume of distribution, in case of overdoses of tricyclic antidepressants, dialysis will be ineffective. Hemodialysis will be ineffective in case of tricyclic antidepressant overdose. The other important thing as far as its pharmacokinetic is concerned, they are metabolized in liver and many active metabolites may be produced. For example, desipramine is an active metabolite of imipramine, nortriptyline is an active metabolite of amitriptyline. They are conjugated with glucuronic acid and then excreted in the urine, and they shows the therapeutic window phenomenon. Now, in case of overdoses, three manifestations are mostly seen with tricyclic antidepressant overdose. One is the anticholinergic effects, the other is the cardiac effects or cardiovascular effects, and the third is CNS toxicity. And tricyclic antidepressant is very toxic in overdose. So how you will manage this condition? You don't have any antidote for tricyclic antidepressant overdose. Hemodialysis is ineffective because of large volume of distribution of tricyclic antidepressants. So at most you can give supportive treatment. You can give gastric lavage with activated charcoal, respiratory support, maintenance of BP can be done. If there is seizure, then diazepam IV should be given. If there is arrhythmia, it should be treated with lidocaine or propranolol. There is very good role of sodium bicarbonate. Sodium bicarbonate have been shown to be effective in reversing the tricyclic antidepressants induced conduction defects and hypotension. So it is a drug of choice for the treatment of ventricular arrhythmias and or hypotension due to tricyclic antidepressant poisoning. Now, what is the rationale for prescribing bicarbonate in tricyclic antidepressant overdoses? One thing, while discussing the pharmacokinetic of tricyclic antidepressant, we have discussed that tricyclic antidepressants are very highly plasma protein bound. They are more than 95% plasma protein bound. Now, this plasma protein binding of tricyclic antidepressant is sensitive to the changes in the pH. If you change the pH from, say for example, from 7.38 to 7.5, it will reduce the amount of free or unbound tricyclic antidepressant by approximately 20%. So by changing the pH, by slightly increasing the pH from 7.38 to 7.5, the fraction of free tricyclic antidepressant or unbound tricyclic antidepressant reduces by up to 20%. So this is what actually sodium bicarbonate is doing. They are decreasing the percentage of free or unbound tricyclic antidepressants available for the action. Have you got my point? Yes? No? See, the free amount of drug will be actually producing the therapeutic effect or whatever overdoses that you are seeing. And if you are giving sodium bicarbonate, you are changing the pH, and this change in pH is actually reducing the amount of free drug. Say for example, in any sports, if number of players, say for example in a football, number of player playing is 11, at any given moment the number of player has reduced to 7 or 8 or 9. So the effect that you want from that particular team will be reduced. So similarly, this sodium bicarbonate, what it is doing, it is reducing the amount of free drug available for action, okay, by changing the pH. So this is the basic thing that you need to understand. The other bad effect of its pharmacokinetic is that because they are strongly bound to plasma protein, they are more than 95% plasma protein bound, the chances of drug interaction or pharmacokinetic interaction with any other drug which is also highly plasma protein bound will be there, because their effect can be potentiated by drugs that compete for their plasma protein binding site. For example, aspirin can displace tricyclic antidepressants from their plasma protein binding sites and cause the transient overdose. Other thing is that tricyclic antidepressants are metabolized by the liver microsomal enzyme. So any drug which induces the liver microsomal enzyme or which inhibits the liver microsomal enzyme or CYP450 enzyme can potentiate or reduce their action. With enzyme inducer, their effect will be reduced. With enzyme inhibitor, their effect can be potentiated. Tricyclic antidepressants should not be given with MAO inhibitors. Why they should not be given with MAO inhibitors? Because yesterday we had seen that MAO inhibitor also inhibit the metabolism through enzyme inhibition. They inhibit the metabolism of noradrenaline and 5-HT. So with MAO inhibitor there will be increased level of noradrenaline, and with TCA there will be also increased level of monoamines such as noradrenaline, 5-HT. So these increased level of, say for example, noradrenaline can lead to hypertensive crisis. The blood pressure of patient might shoot to very higher level. Are you getting my point? The other thing is that tricyclic antidepressant can potentiate the effect of any other CNS depressant, for example alcohol or benzodiazepines. As far as tolerance and dependence is concerned, the good thing is that tolerance to their antimuscarinic effect or hypotensive effect develops on the long-term use, but tolerance do not happens to their, or tolerance do not develop to their antidepressant effects. So antidepressant effect remains as such, but tolerance develop to their other side effect or other unwanted effects such as fall in blood pressure or the antimuscarinic effect. Physical dependence can happen if you prescribe very higher dosage of tricyclic antidepressant for very longer period. And if tricyclic antidepressants have been prescribed for a very longer period, they should be gradually withdrawn. Otherwise, the withdrawal symptom or withdrawal manifestations can be there. Psychological dependence is very rarely seen. So the chances of physical dependence only with the higher dosage for a prolonged period, and psychological dependence is very rarely reported. So they do not carry the abuse potential. The other thing that I had told you, if you give tricyclic antidepressant to a normal healthy person, the healthy person will have a very unpleasant effect or unpleasant activity will be noticed, and there will be no elevation of mood in the healthy person. So this might be one of the reason because of the less chances of abuse or drug abuse with the tricyclic antidepressant. Now let us briefly discuss about their therapeutic uses. Now see, in depression there is both emotional symptom as well as the biological symptom. Like emotional symptom manifest as lack of self-esteem, guilt, feeling of guilt will be very much, loss of motivation will be there, and there will be biological symptoms. For example, patient will be unable to sleep, there will be loss of appetite, retardation of action. Now we have seen that tricyclic antidepressants have got two phenomena. It increases the level of noradrenaline and it increases the level of serotonin. So this increased level of noradrenaline is actually helpful in relieving the biological symptoms, whereas this increased level of 5-HT is helpful in relieving the emotional symptom. And tricyclic antidepressants is very useful in the treatment of moderate to severe depression and even depression that is not responding to SSRIs or SNRIs. They respond to tricyclic antidepressant, but only thing is that you have to be careful about the side effects. And in any patient who is suffering from bipolar disorder, be aware that it might unmask the manic symptom. So in cases of bipolar disorder, you need to prescribe anti-manic drugs such as lithium or any other drug along with tricyclic antidepressants. Are you getting my point? No? Yes? There are other uses of tricyclic antidepressants. For example, in obsessive compulsive disorders, they are prescribed. In panic disorder, anxiety disorder, anorexia nervosa, they can be prescribed. They have got also non-psychiatric uses. For example, to control the bedwetting in children, imipramine can be prescribed. For neuropathic pain, amitriptyline can be prescribed. And we have already discussed, or you have already seen, that they can also be prescribed for prophylaxis of migraine. Drugs such as amitriptyline have got a role to play as far as prophylaxis of migraine is concerned. So to sum up the things about tricyclic antidepressants, we have seen that they have got good things, that any depression which is not being controlled by SSRI or SNRI can be treated with tricyclic antidepressants. But these drugs have got a low safety margin. There are various other adverse effects associated with these drugs. Therapeutic lag is there. Therapeutic lag is even seen with SSRIs. Now, MAO inhibitors or monoamine oxidase inhibitors. MAO inhibitors, broadly we can classify MAO inhibitors into two categories: non-selective inhibitors, which non-selectively inhibit both MAO A and MAO B. We have irreversible non-selective inhibitors such as tranylcypromine. But these irreversible non-selective inhibitors are not much preferred because we have seen that MAO A has got a role to play in the metabolism of 5-HT and noradrenaline. So you selectively want to block MAO A rather than blocking both MAO A and MAO B. So there are selective reversible inhibitor of MAO enzyme such as MAO A inhibitor, moclobemide, which is more preferred. Selegiline is inhibiting the MAO B, so it has got no role to play in the treatment of depression. But one thing that we talked about with the use of MAO inhibitors, the chances of cheese reaction will be there. For example, if any patient, if he or she consumes cheese or beer or red wine or meat or fish, these food items, they contain very large amount of tyramine and other indirectly acting amines. Now, if a patient has been prescribed irreversible MAO blocker, these tyramine, they will not be metabolized and they will reach the circulation and displace the large amount of noradrenaline from the transmitter loaded adrenergic nerve, and this displaced noradrenaline will lead to hypertensive crisis, which is a medical emergency. So to avoid these adverse effects, it is better to prescribe a reversible and selective MAO A inhibitors, and that is what you want for the treatment of depression. So moclobemide is a highly selective and reversible MAO A inhibitors. They have got short duration of action and the chances of cheese reaction is very less. And in contrast to tricyclic antidepressants, they are devoid of any antimuscarinic effects or any histamine blocking effect or alpha adrenergic blocking effect. So they can be prescribed in mild to moderate depression as an alternative to tricyclic antidepressants. Now in the last segment of this class, let us discuss about atypical antidepressants. Now what do you mean by atypical antidepressants? Till now we have seen that to treat depression you need to follow that monoamine hypothesis, like you need to design a drug as per the monoamine hypothesis. And what monoamine hypothesis is all about? It says that depression is due to decreased level of monoamines. So antidepressant drugs should increase the level of monoamines. So the typical antidepressants actually fit into that particular criteria of drug which actually increases the level of monoamine either by enzyme inhibition or either by reuptake blockade. But these atypical antidepressants, you cannot fit them into those classical antidepressant drug classes as far as their mechanism of action is concerned, because they have got additional mechanism of action or different mechanism of action, or they are affecting the serotonin differently than SSRIs. They can be prescribed in any patient who is not tolerating the first line or the uh, drugs such as SSRIs. So among atypical antidepressants, we have drugs such as trazodone, mianserin, mirtazapine, bupropion. Let us one by one see their mechanism of action. Trazodone have got multifunctional effect. Its effect in low doses and in high doses differ. In low doses, it has got hypnotic effect. In low doses, it blocks the 5-HT2A receptor and it also blocks the H1 histamine receptor and alpha-1 adrenergic receptor. See, blocking of this H1 histamine receptor and alpha-1 adrenergic receptor can lead to sedation. Like H1 blocking can lead to sedation and alpha-1 blocking leads to orthostatic hypotension. And this blocking of 5-HT2A receptor also leads to this sedative hypnotic effect. So at low doses, it is mainly causing sedation and hypnosis, apart from the adverse effects such as orthostatic hypotension. But as you increase the dose, in higher doses, it blocks the serotonin transporter, same as that of SSRIs. But in lower doses, it was not blocking the serotonin transporter. So, trazodone, because it has got atypical action, we club it as atypical antidepressant, and it can be used in depression which is associated with sleep disturbances. Then other drug mianserin, it is unique in the sense that it do not inhibit the reuptake of noradrenaline and 5-HT. Rather, what it does, it blocks the presynaptic alpha-2 receptor, and this blocking of this presynaptic alpha-2 receptors, it increases the release and turnover of noradrenaline, which is actually responsible for the antidepressant effect. Similar to trazodone, it also antagonizes the 5-HT2 and H1 receptor, and it has got sedative effect. But it damages the liver and bone marrow. Mirtazapine, it blocks the presynaptic alpha-2 autoreceptors, similar to mianserin, and because of this blocking of presynaptic alpha-2 autoreceptor, it increases the release of noradrenaline to the synaptic cleft. And in addition, it also antagonizes the alpha-2 hetero receptors in the serotonergic nerve terminal, increasing the serotonin release. But it also blocks the 5-HT2 receptors and blocks the 5-HT3 receptor. Blocking of 5-HT3 receptor leads to the GI side effect, and blocking of 5-HT2 receptors leads to sexual dysfunction, anxiety, and sleep disruption. Then bupropion. Bupropion, it not only blocks the reuptake of noradrenaline, it blocks the reuptake of dopamine also. But it has got no action on blocking the reuptake of 5-HT, or it has got no direct action on 5-HT. And it does not block the histamine receptor or adrenergic receptor. So this is all about the antidepressants, including atypical antidepressants. So in this class, we have seen what actually depression is, what are the types of depression. What are the types of depression? Unipolar and bipolar. Unipolar depression can further be of two types, exogenous and endogenous, and then bipolar, in which the mood fluctuates between depression and mania. For unipolar depression of exogenous type or reactive depression, mostly these are self-limiting. For endogenous depression, which is basically genetically determined, you need antidepressants. In severe cases, you might need ECT. Now, as far as antidepressants are concerned, we have seen that SSRIs are a better option, but they have got certain limitations. TCA is also a option, but the thing is TCA are associated with various adverse effects. But if patients do not respond to SSRI, TCA can be prescribed, because patients who have not responded to SSRI, sometimes they respond to TCA, but you have to be cautious about the adverse effects that it can lead to. The other alternative to TCA is the reversible selective MAO inhibitor. In mild to moderate depression, it can be prescribed. One of the option is SNRI. SNRI do not block the other receptor that TCA is blocking, but similar to TCA, it is blocking the reuptake of noradrenaline and serotonin. And if patient is not tolerating or not showing any effect with this typical antidepressant, then you can move on to atypical antidepressants. And in patients of bipolar disorder, only antidepressant drug should not be prescribed, but you need to prescribe the other drugs such as lithium or any other mood stabilizing drug. Okay, so in nutshell, this is all about antidepressant drugs. Okay, thank you.